So this is another introductory lecture given by Michele Ciampi.
Okay, good. So we said that when we tried to compose in parallel our Sigma protocols, like we were able to amplify indeed soundness, but unfortunately we weren't able to do it. So what I'm going to show you now is that actually, if we don't aim for zero knowledge, but we aim for something weaker, that parallel composition actually works. Okay, and we can get a very nice tool, which we will use then to get finally a nice zero knowledge protocol that is secure against any type of verifiers and that has very kind of good around efficiency. Okay, now this relaxed notion I'm gonna tell you about is called witness indistinguishability. Okay? So this notion makes sense when you have a statement that has multiple witnesses. One way to think about it is like think about an Hamiltonian graph that has two cycles. Okay? Or, for example, the OR statements that we have discussed at the beginning of the previous lecture, like where I want to prove that either I know that the witness for x0 or the witness for like x1. And what we want is the following. So consider an experiment where the prover engages in an execution of this protocol with a verifier. Okay, so the verifier is always the bad guy, still, like in the zero knowledge case. And in the first experiment, the prover uses the witness W1. In this other experiment, the prover uses another witness W2. Okay? And what we require is that the adversary should not be able to distinguish between these two scenarios. Okay? It's like an indistinguishability game, like when you encrypt a message and you don't want the adversary to distinguish. Here it's very similar. The only difference is that I'm not encrypting here. I'm just issuing a proof using a witness W1, and here I'm issuing a proof using another witness. And the adversary should not distinguish. So just like mind the fact that the relation specifies exactly what I'm hiding. So witness indistinguishability makes sense only when you specify the NP relation. Also observe that a language can have multiple NP relationships. Just because you can just have a relation that checks your instance and then like I don't know, like also verifies if the instance has a bunch of zeros. So like that you just don't use them. It's just you can create multiple instances that are valid for relationships that do crazy things. So this notion, moreover, becomes trivial when you only have one witness. Okay? The reason is that if an instance has only one witness, then you get trivial witness indistinguishability by just sending the witness in the clear. Then this proof is witness indistinguishable. Okay, because the two experiments, of course, they are indistinguishable. You just have one witness, and that's what you send. That's a very simple proof. What I will show you now is that if you take every zero knowledge protocol, it doesn't matter what is the soundness of this protocol. Okay, every zero knowledge protocol is also witness indistinguishable. So zero knowledge is a stronger property. And moreover, I will show you then that witness indistinguishability is closed under parallel composition. Okay, so let's see the first statement. Okay, so I want to prove that if a protocol is zero knowledge, then it enjoys this nice witness indistinguishability property. So if my assumption of the protocol is zero knowledge, this means that if you look at this execution and you look at the simulated experiment, those two are indistinguishable by definition, because it's zero knowledge. Here I'm using the witness, and for every adversary that attacks this protocol, there is another one that kind of, attacks and returns whatever this guy returns in a simulated experiment where I don't use the witness. Good. So, but I can also say that this thing holds, right? I mean, this is just an experiment, real world experiment where the prover uses the witness, and it is indistinguishable from the simulated experiment. Okay, but now you have like this transitivity property, indistinguishability like has this transitivity property that allows you to easily claim that then this means that also this thing, this experiment is indistinguishable from this one. Okay? That's how you prove that zero knowledge implies witness indistinguishability. Here, I'm not talking about soundness. It's just like a property that I care against the corrupted verifier. Verifier, bad guy in this case. Good. Fine. So now what I can do is that once that I have a WI proof, I can do the following. I can do the parallel composition. So instead of doing sequential composition to amplify the soundness of this proof, I just do multiple executions of the same protocol to amplify the soundness. So we have tried to do many times so far. And what I'm claiming is that this protocol does amplify the soundness, because I will not prove you that, but you should be convinced that that's true, kind of, because the challenge becomes bigger. But what is important is that the witness indistinguishability property here is preserved. And this is preserved because what I can do is that I can consider an intermediate experiment. So the proof follows by a hybrid argument. So what I do is the following. I take another experiment, which is exactly like this one. The only difference is that I use the witness W2 just for the first execution. Okay? And now I'm asking, like, could it be that an adversary distinguished between these two experiments? Who think yes, and who think that an adversary can distinguish between these two? Yeah, no. Okay. It's not possible. Otherwise, you can do a reduction that breaks the security, the witness indistinguishability of this key. Okay? And I can proceed in this way. Okay. At every step, I change only exactly one witness, and I will be at some point just using the witness W2 to all the kind of protocol instances that I'm running. Okay. And because of what you have said, it means that this game ultimately is indistinguishable from this game. So we have proven that this thing is indistinguishable. So witness indistinguishability composes in parallel. And this is now great news, because now we can just put together everything we said so far. Okay. So we have a protocol, a sigma protocol, with 1-bit challenge for an important cycle to prove that a graph is uniform. We have also seen that every protocol that is zero knowledge and the 1-bit protocol for Hamiltonicity is zero knowledge. Remember, we have proven that. This is WI. This is witness indistinguishable. Okay, we said that the soundness is 4 because it's just 1 bit, but we can amplify because we can repeat this thing in sequence. And moreover, remember this protocol, the protocol for the Hamiltonicity was just 3 rounds. So we have this nice theorem at the end, just by putting everything together, that if we have a non-interactive commitment, then we have a 3-round witness indistinguishable proof of knowledge, which has a negligible soundness error. And you can use this protocol like to prove every language in NP. Okay? This is because like this is an NP complete language. Okay, the language of Hamiltonian graphs. So you can do just polynomial time reduction to the Hamiltonicity, and you're fine. If you're not familiar with this concept, just believe me that if you have a protocol for proving Hamiltonian cycles, you can use this protocol for every language in NP. It's just that you need to pay an expensive kind of card production anytime that you change your language, which is something in practice doesn't really. Yes.
So are there multiple witnesses in the sense that the permutation and the permuted graph cycle, that those are all witnesses?
No, it's just that your original graph has 2 cycles instead of 1. That's it. Okay. And what this thing tells you is that if I use the first cycle or the second cycle in my proof, you don't understand which cycle I'm using. Okay? Yeah. Moreover, what is important, and I want to stress this, is that the distinguisher, when we say things are indistinguishable here, you cannot understand whether I'm using the first cycle or the second cycle. And the distinguisher knows the cycles. So indistinguishability holds even if the adversary knows the cycles. This is similar to what Jonathan said in the first lecture, which is like zero knowledge holds even if the adversary knows the witness. So this is a bit strange because you say, I want to protect the witness, but that's not what zero knowledge means. Zero knowledge means that whatever an adversary returns in the real world, it can be returned by a simulator without having the witness. This cannot be distinguished even if a distinguisher has the witness. It's a bit counterintuitive, but if you think about it, that's the right way to define things. Yeah.
So is it like that if there exists only one witness per statement, then
witness indistinguishability is meaningless.
okay, and then if there's two witnesses, then doesn't it suddenly become interesting, or is
It
it?
becomes interesting because I can protect one witness. Like you don't understand what witness I'm using.
Okay.
That's the thing.
But it's not like in practice you would have to have like an exponentially sized witness.
No, so there are cases where this is useful. Think about the following. So let's say I want to identify myself. This is the usual typical example. I want to identify myself to a service. I want to, prove to the service, look, I am entitled to access this service. How do you do that? So the way you can do this is that like the service has some public information about you, which is G to the Y, and you have a Y value, which is like your password. Okay. So in order to authenticate to the system, and in order to access the services of the system, you need to convince this guy that you know the witness for this guy. Okay, and you can do this using some of the protocols we assess. Okay, but let's say that you want to authenticate yourself, but you don't want this service to know who you are. So in particular, this service serves many clients. So this means that there are many, like each client has a password, let's say, as a secret, and there are n clients ultimately. So what I can do, I can issue a witness indistinguishable proof where I prove that I know the witness for one of these multiple statements. So this means that this guy will be convinced, oh, okay, you know at least a witness for these many things, but he will have no idea whether I am, I know the secret for this instance, or for this instance. Okay? And this is how, for example, people realize like ring signatures. If you are familiar with it, that's kind of the concept we have here.
Is that not then an or proof rather than witnessing indistinguishability?
Yeah, an or proof is basically a witness. What do you want to prove with an or proof? That either this statement is true or this statement is true.
You're not talking about the same statement there, right?
Correct, but I can cast this just like a one big NP statement.
Okay, yeah.
I say my NP statement
Sure,
is
sure.
G to the y1, G to the y2, G to the yn. And I'm saying that this thing like, the relation is like there exists a y and an index I in n such that G to the y is equal to, let's say those are called x1 and G to the y is equal to x5. So all proofs are kind of, you can always cast it in this way. Okay, so yeah.
So there was a question online about the difference between sequential amplification of soundness and parallel amplification.
So let's say that the only difference is that in sequential amplification, first of all, like you need more rounds to do that. And second of all, there you can prove that zero knowledge composes in sequential because what you can do is that like for each proof, you can just simulate the first proof, then you simulate the second one, the third one, and so on. It's like then you can do an hybrid experiment, like an hybrid proof similar to the one I showed you with the witness indistinguishability, where you just isolate each session where you switch from prover to simulator. And this session is kind of on its own, it's isolated. There are no rounds of other protocols, you can just really do a very simple reduction. One thing I should say, I don't want to go into the details of this, but this works only if you consider a notion of zero knowledge, which is with the auxiliary, which means that your adversary gets an auxiliary information, like, and this is important for the proof. If you want to know more about this, I'll happy to kind of talk.
I think maybe you can repeat my answer, but I think what the person asked is more like what's the difference? Like what is the difference between parallel and sequential? And I think it's that in sequential composition, You only run the protocol again after the first one finished, right?
Yeah, sequential, you run the first protocol once and then you start executing the other one. Yeah, exactly. In the parallel composition, when I send the first round of the first protocol, I compute the first round of all the executions, right? Or all the protocols. That's there is a subtlety here, but yeah, that's what you do. Like all the rounds are aligned.
It's still it's still different rounds at the same time. It's not that you just make the challenge space somehow bigger or that you were like combining them.
So you are indeed kind of so the point is that you are increasing the challenge space. It's like the reason why the protocol for the Hamiltonian cycle was now sound because I was doing more repetitions, like sequential. The same arguments hold if you were able to do the repetition in parallel. And the reason is that if the adversary now can cheat in one execution of the protocol, sure, he can do that. But in order to cheat, like to convince you about the validity of a false statement, you would need to cheat in all these executions. You would need to do something bad in all of these executions. And the thing is that you will get caught because you have many opportunities now, many execution of these protocols to detect that something bad happened. Yeah. Yes.
Would it be fair to say that sequential composition is only valuable if the malicious verifier is learning something at the end of each run of the protocol? And therefore, if the malicious verifier is not learning anything, that's when there's no difference between that and.
So parallel composition is just this is just a way you can structure a protocol. It's not about a security definition or anything. It's just that you can do things in parallel or in a sequential way. That's it. It's not about the definition. Then you need to argue, okay, but what type of security do I get from here? Do I get is zero knowledge of the original protocol preserved? Do I get my soundness amplified because now I have the adversary needs to kind of cheat in all these executions, and that's kind of difficult for the adversary to do. That's kind of the okay. So when I say the adversary can cheat, remember in the 1-bit challenge case, the adversary could just run the simulator, the honest verified zero knowledge simulator, and with probability 1/2, he will guess the correct bit. Okay. So he will be able to answer. But if you need to do this for lambda kind of bits, it becomes complicated. The adversary will not be able to do so. Okay, so that's why kind of repeating the protocol makes better kind of soundness. Does it make sense? Okay, so that's now our new gadget. Okay, so we have this nice tool, and I will denote it in this way. Okay, so this is like the prover, Alice, the verifier is Bob, and it's a WI like proof of knowledge. This is proof of knowledge because we have also argued that Sigma protocols are indeed a proof of knowledge. So we have composed in parallel a Sigma protocol. So we get that this protocol is ultimately is witness indistinguishable and proof of knowledge. Okay, proof of knowledge, remember, means that there exists an extractor that can retrieve the witness that the malicious prover used to generate an accepting transcript. So this is gonna be the main building block we're gonna use now. So are the properties of this block clear? Okay, so finally, let's see how we get to this constant round protocol that is zero knowledge. The protocol works in this way. So the verifier picks a one-way function. A one-way function is like a function that is easy to compute but hard to invert from a probabilistic polynomial time algorithm. Okay. For example, the discrete logarithm, like doing g to the y is easy, but finding the discrete logarithm of a random group element is difficult. Okay, in some groups. That's a one-way function. That's a one-way permutation. Okay, so the verifier picks a one-way function and picks two values in the domain of the function and evaluates the function on these two values. Okay, it's like f of z0 and f of z1. He gets two values, y0 and y1, and sends this value to the prover. Moreover, the verifier proves that he knows, with the witness indistinguishable proof of knowledge, that he knows the pre-image of one of these two values. Okay? Does it make sense so far? Okay, and we complete the protocol in this way. Now the prover issues a witness indistinguishable proof of knowledge, where he proves that either he knows like the pre-image of one of these two values, or he knows the witness for X in L. Okay, this is a very strange protocol. Okay, but I hope that what is happening here is clear. Okay, this guy proves that, oh look, I know a pre-image of these two values, and the prover shows you know, I know either that this is true or this is true or this is true. Okay? In particular, this is a proof of knowledge, so it means that he's proving the knowledge of either a pre-image of these values or one of these values, or like the knowledge of the witness.
Is the Z the same or no?
Mm.
The Z is the same in the two proofs, or is it different?
No, it can be different. Like it doesn't. This is like there exists a Z. Okay?
So the prover doesn't know what the other guy did.
No, it cannot know that. I mean, it doesn't know that. In particular, the honest prover cannot know that. So in particular, like what happens here is that, as you can imagine, how do you run this protocol now? Okay, so this proof here can be executed by the verifier because he knows the pre-image. Actually, you know the pre-image of like both Y0 and Y1. So he has a witness here. Great. So how about the prover? So the prover, instead, I mean, he cannot know the pre-image of Y0, neither the pre-image of Y1. So the only thing the prover can do is to prove that X is in L, because that's what you want to prove. Yes.
One thing that we're now assuming is that the prover is not unbounded, right?
Correct. So this prover is polynomial time. Yes.
Okay, so we
Okay, good. So how do we prove? How do we show that this thing is zero knowledge? So the high-level idea here is the following. We said that the zero knowledge simulator can rewind the adversary. And we said that rewindings are useful when you want to simulate, but also when you want to do extraction. And this thing is a proof of knowledge. So what the simulator can do is to extract, run the proof of knowledge extractor. And he will get the pre-image of one of these two things. Okay? Let's say, for example, Z0. Okay. And now, instead of using the witness for X in L, which the simulator doesn't know, the simulator will use the knowledge of this value here, of the pre-image of the pre-image of this Y0 value. Okay. Yes.
Is there a type on this? Like, what is Y0 equals Z or Y1?
That's a typo, I think. 1 second. Yeah, that's a typo. So what you want is that you know the pre-image. Like you want is like, you know, you want to prove the pre-image of one of these two values. Okay, that's a typo. Yes,
It would be f of z.
You want that f of z is equal to Y0 or f of z is equal to Y1. Yeah. Okay. And here the same. It's like you want to prove that f of z is equal to Y0. Okay. So now, you know, the job of the simulator is kind of done, because like the simulator was able to complete a proof without knowing the witness, and everything is great. Okay, and I mean the proof is a bit more involved. Of course, you need to do some reductions, but that's kind of it. Okay. Zero knowledge was relatively easy. Now let's see soundness. Okay, so for soundness, the high-level idea is that if someone is attacking the protocol, then like there is no way that it should be able to invert the one-way function. So the only thing that a prover can do is to actually use this branch here to issue like an accepting proof, because that's the only thing that it should be able to do. Let's formalize this thing. Okay. So assume by contradiction that we have an adversary that makes the verifier to accept in the protocol I just showed you. Okay. And now the proof works in this way. So the first thing that we do is we need to execute this proof of knowledge. We need to pick one of the witness. Let's say we pick the witness Z0, okay? Just the pre-image of Y0. And we use this witness to complete this proof of knowledge. Now, X is not in the language, right? So this means that if I extract from here, what can I get? Can I get the witness for X? I mean, X is not in the language, so I cannot. Okay. What will I get here? Will I get the pre-image of Y0 or the pre-image of Y1? So in particular, can I get the pre-image of y0 when I do this extraction? Yes, no? I mean, it could be. If this cannot be, then it can, one of these two things could be, okay? And what I'm gonna argue now is that that's actually not true, okay? Because if this happens, then it means that we can design an adversary that inverts the one-way function, which we said that cannot be done. Okay? The intuition here is that in this execution, I'm using the witness Z0, so the pre-image of Y0 to complete this proof. And here I'm extracting Z1, which is the pre-image of Y. So this kind of means that the adversary is giving me some useful information. It's telling me what is the pre-image of Y1, and I never use the pre-image of Y1. So this is a perfect case, like to do a reduction. Okay? So the reduction works in this way. So we have a cheating prover that breaks soundness, and we want to now design a new adversary that I'm calling one-way functions adversary. So in the one-way function security game, like you have think about a game between a challenger and an adversary. The challenger will give you the function, the one-way function, and some value that is challenging you to invert. So the adversary wins in this game if he can invert y. So what you do now is that, we need to interact with the adversary, and we do exactly what I said before. Like, I use Z0 to complete this proof because I know the pre-image, and I set y1 equal to y. This is the challenge. This is the thing I need to invert in order to win in this one-way function security game. Okay. Now, what happens is that when I extract, I get Z1, and I won. Okay. So I've inverted the one-way function. But by assumption, this is not possible. Okay. So it cannot be that when I use Z0 here, I extract Z1 from here. Now, my question for you is like, if I use Z1 to do this proof, could it be that I extracted Z0? So who thinks this is possible? Who thinks this is not possible? Okay. Why is it not possible?
Same as before.
For the same argument. Because otherwise I can invert the one-way function, right? Because here I'm using the knowledge of Z1, nothing about Z0. And here this guy is telling me how to invert the one-way function. Okay. So you can do exactly the same reduction. So actually the claim I can have is that if I use ZB here, it cannot be that I extract Z1 minus B. Very simple. So if I use Z1, I cannot extract Z0 and the other way. Yeah, very simple. Okay, this means that the only thing that remains is that I use ZB and I extract ZB. Okay, all the time. I use Z0 here and I get Z0 here, and the same for Y. Question, can this happen? Why not?
Witness indistinguishable.
Because you can use an adversary that does this to break witness indistinguishability of this property, of the property of this scheme. Okay? I'll show you the reduction. It's a very simple reduction. It's interactive, so it's like, but the reduction works in this way. Now, we want to argue that we can use a cheating prover to break the witness indistinguishability property of one of our building block. So the witness indistinguishability challenger, what does it do? So again, we are at the adversary for WI, so we need to act as a verifier. Moreover, we need to tell this challenger like for what statement and what witnesses he can use. Remember that the adversary knows this stuff. Actually, you can think about the adversary even deciding what is the statement and the witness for simplicity that will be used in the security game. So, okay, what is the statement? What are the witnesses? Okay, in Z, the pre-image of Y0, the pre-image of Y1. So, the statement is like, prove me the knowledge of either the inversion of Y0 or the inversion of Y1. As you can see, the type of propagates forever, but that's a copy-paste problem. Okay, so I'm telling the challenger, look, you need to prove me this thing, that either the pre-image of Y0 or Y1, and like those are the witnesses, those are the pre-image. And you know, because this is WI, I should not be able to understand which of the two witnesses was used. So what the challenger does is that he picks a random bit and issues a proof. Issues a proof means that he will send the first prover message of this witness indistinguishable proof. Okay, we need to give a second message, a second round message to the challenger, and this will come from the adversary, because the adversary decides what's the second round here. Okay, then we complete the proof. Okay, now how do we understand how to win the reduction? Like we need to complete the reduction, we need to be able to extract this bit of B. Well, we said that this happens, that if we run this extractor here, we extract ZP, and this tells us what witness was used, and this is a contradiction. Okay, so now this means that I am in the following situation. I cannot extract ZB if I use ZB. I cannot extract Z1 minus B. What does it mean? Huh? Huh?
You cannot extract it, or that's correct.
It means that what I assumed at the beginning is incorrect. It means that it cannot be that text is not in the language. Okay? This means that the only way that a prover can convince me is only if X is actually in the language. Okay? I started from assuming something that is incorrect. And because I was assuming something incorrect, I got a bunch of contradictions.
Can you remind me why we do distinguishability for witnesses?
So witness indistinguishability is just a tool that we are using in this protocol to argue that this big protocol here is zero knowledge. Is zero knowledge and moreover has good soundness. Okay, soundness.
Does it also have worked if the protocol we're using inside is zero knowledge, or
We want to construct zero knowledge, right?
okay, from witness in
From witness indistinguishability.
Okay,
The
okay.
ultimate goal is to do zero knowledge.
Okay, okay.
And we have proven, like in the kind of before, that we have a simulator that works, and that's. Now soundness here is good because we said that we will use WI proof of knowledge that have good soundness. Okay, so those things are also extractable, so they are fantastic. So you can believe that if you prove something here, this something is true, okay? For sure. And okay, so the fact that we have proven that it cannot be that they extract either this pre-image or this pre-image, it means that basically what I extract here is actually a witness for X image, which means that what I originally said and assumed by contradiction is not true. So if you get an accepting proof with this protocol, it means the text belongs to the language. And that's what you want from soundness. Okay. Questions on this? Yes.
Not sure if it will be coming next, but so now we don't care about knowledge soundness. So we have just constructed an argument, not an argument of knowledge.
This is also an argument of knowledge because I just said that if you extract from here, actually, you cannot extract the pre-image of any of these things. So this is also an argument of knowledge. So you can extract the witness also from here. Yeah. Okay. And crucially here, soundness, everything holds against a bounded prover, because otherwise, of course, if this guy was unbounded, he could break the one-way functions and just use any two branches in the proof. Okay. Any more questions on this? Like, yes.
Did you say why you need the second proof system to witness indistinguishable? I think it's
Because otherwise, when you use the simulator, because the simulator will not use this branch, it will use one of these, and then the adversary will recognize that and will say, no, what's going on? Like simulation will fail. So it's, yeah. Now, of course, there is a question, does this need to be proof, or can be argument, can be witness? I will not go into these details, and I don't think it's worth it right now. Questions on this? This is like kind of the most complicated thing I had to show you, yes.
So defining a one-way function, shouldn't we be using the security definition that often Katz used earlier with lambda to apply it to the sort of security that we can expect from the one-way?
Yeah, of course, like here I've been like very informal, like the question is like how secure is this one-way function? So everything here will be parameterized properly with this lambda security parameter, of course. The probability that you invert the one-way function will be negligible in lambda for adversary that runs in probabilistic polynomial time in lambda. the property here, the extractor will be successful with some probability that depends on the security parameter. So which means basically that the way we construct this thing, the number of repetitions we do is something like lambda security parameter, okay? Everything must be properly, of course, parameterized. So this thing, then just to recap, is a zero knowledge argument of knowledge, which means that soundness error is negligible. The probability that an adversary convinces you is just negligible, unless, of course, the statement does belong to the language. Okay? And we have proven that it's zero knowledge against arbitrary malicious verifiers. So we are kind of almost done. However, note that this protocol here is like 7 rounds. And so we want to get up to 4 rounds. And why, I'll discuss that later. But to do that, you can do the following, okay? You don't really need to, you don't really need to execute everything like in one after the other. You can, let's say not parallelize, but you can rearrange the messages in this way, and ultimately you get a 4-round protocol, okay? So there are some technicalities here. So in particular, one annoying thing that is solvable is that remember how the simulator works. So the simulator needs to extract from this proof of knowledge to extract one of the pre-image, and then use this witness in this proof. That's how we said that the simulator works. But now, I mean, I need to, like, before extracting, I also need to, the simulator would need to at least send the first round of this protocol here, and the simulator doesn't know the witness, doesn't know the trapdoor, doesn't know how to, maybe doesn't even know how to start this proof because it doesn't have the witness. Okay. So indeed, to make sure that you can squeeze this thing into 4 rounds, you need an additional property which is called delayed input. So which means that the prover doesn't need the statement or the witness to generate the proof. But it needs them only in the last round, only to generate the last round of the protocol. So the first 2 rounds are independent from the witness and from the theorem actually. And moreover, what you want is that security holds against adversaries that then like decide their statement only kind of adaptively in only adaptively based on the messages of the protocol. I don't want to go there. I'm just mentioning it. So you need this property, and there are actually protocols that satisfy this property. So they're very similar to the protocol we have seen for unicity. It's just a variant of that. It's a very interesting variant, and it has very interesting, these interesting properties. Okay. So, okay, good. So, to summarize what we have done so far. So we have seen that zero knowledge implies witness indistinguishability. Then we have seen that witness indistinguishability composes. Okay. In parallel, but actually you can show that it composes in concurrency. So it doesn't matter how you schedule the messages, WI is preserved, that's fine. And we have seen that using this tool, we can get 4-round computational zero knowledge argument for Hamiltonian graphs. Okay. And this means in particular that NP is included in the computational zero knowledge, which means that every language has a computational zero knowledge protocol. And we can prove that like NP is included in statistical zero knowledge using a statistically hiding commit, just to mention. Yes.
We just want to assume the one-way functions. I think you said the commitment needs 2 rounds.
Correct.
So we have like 5 rounds.
No, right.
Maybe I missed that.
Not really. So the point is that, yeah, in this case, like you can. So if you want to do this from one-way functions, like, yeah, we will need an additional round, but you can get away with, for example, one-way permutations. You can do. I mean, there are some details I'm not telling you. Okay, good. So now the question is whether this protocol is actually the best protocol on Earth. Okay, at least in terms of round complexity, because round complexity is a bad thing. Like communicating, like having multiple rounds of interactions over internet is very bad. Latency is terrible. So these affects efficiency very much. Okay? So the question is like whether we can go below 4 rounds. So in particular, can we have a 3-round protocol, for example, or a 1-round protocol? So this is just now a sketch proof, but the high level idea is the following. Okay, so the simulator, like the way you do zero knowledge, is because the simulator uses this structure inside the protocol. So it's like at some point of the protocol, we have this situation where the simulator can rewind by asking multiple times, this kind of second round here, and receiving multiple replies. Okay? It's like I keep fix something. I send you many of these messages, and you will reply to me with to all these queries that I'm asking you. Okay, while keeping fix one message. So if you look at all the extractions we have done, all the simulation things we have done, all of them have this structure. There's something fixed and I rewind. So the problem you have when you have 3 rounds is that what can the simulator here do? So as you can see here, the simulator, it's not in this situation. It's not like he's receiving a proof or like it was a Sigma protocol. It's like there is no, like you are never in this nice, sometimes this is like can be thought as a cut and juice thing where I ask you something and you give me some information about this first round and I can repeat this thing many, many times, okay? So if you look at this protocol here, you will see that the simulator, sure, can rewind, but it's not like it's very helpful for the simulator. If I rewind like the 3rd round, what do? I am the last one speaking. The simulator, the prover is speaking for the last time. So, okay, yeah, I can send multiple 3rd rounds. I get nothing. What I can do is maybe to restart the session from scratch. Sure, okay. Yeah, we all can start a new session from scratch, even a corrupted prover. And indeed, the point is that you can argue that whatever the simulator can do here, it can be done also by a corrupted prover. Indeed, if by assumption, you're saying that there exists a 3-round protocol, what you can prove is the following. So if you have a 3-round protocol and it's zero knowledge, it means we have a simulator. Now, my question for you is the following. If I query this simulator, one important thing that I want to stress, zero knowledge works for, of course, statements that are true statements. Zero knowledge is defined over statements that have a witness. Otherwise, zero knowledge doesn't really make sense. So my question for you is the following. Let's say that I have, for example, a protocol for Diffie-Hellman tuple. So I can prove that tuple is Diffie-Hellman. Remember? So what happens if I, instead of X here, which is a Diffie-Hellman tuple, as input to the simulator, what if I input to the simulator a tuple which is non-Diffie-Hellman? So what do you think that this simulator does? Does it explode? Yeah.
I mean, it cannot behave differently because it cannot distinguish between the 2 distributions.
Say it again.
It cannot behave differently because it cannot distinguish between the 2 distributions.
The point is that if the simulator behaves differently, then we can use the simulator to distinguish between Diffie-Hellman tuple and non-Diffie-Hellman tuple. Okay. And the point is that you can extend this way of thinking to languages for which we believe it's hard to decide the membership of an instance to a language. Okay. In general, if it's hard to decide whether X is not in the language or it is in the language, you can assume that the simulator cannot behave differently in these cases. Otherwise, you would have not a contradiction, but yeah, we would contradict something that we assume to believe, we believe it's true, that there are kind of hard things to do in this world. Okay. So then the first claim I'm making is that for some languages, the simulator will just return a good thing, something that looks like a transcript generated using just some real world transcript, let's say. Okay? So now this means that if all of what we said here holds true, I can use this to design a corrupted prover that breaks the soundness of the protocol here, that we are assuming that it's zero knowledge and sound, okay? How does the adversary work? So the adversary can do the following, picks a false statement and runs the simulator. So now it's true, the simulator can maybe do multiple rewinds in the sense that it can restart completely a session, but there will be a session at some point that will be used for the final simulation that will appear in the final output. Now we don't know what this session is, but let's assume for now that the adversary realized that that's the right session. That's the moment where the simulator will return an output. What the adversary can do is to just return this message to an honest verifier. Then the verifier replies, and the adversary says, "Look, this is the answer of this verifier, which is supposed to be corrupted, right? The simulator works against any type of verifier. This is honest, even better." And then the simulator returns the third message, and we forward it, and we said that the verifier must accept. This must be an accepting transcript, right? Because otherwise, if this is accepting only when X is in L, it means that we have a distinguisher that can understand the membership of X in the language. Okay, so, but this is a valid adversary for soundness, so we are contradicting in soundness, and it means that what we were assuming before, it's not true. So there is no 3-round protocol which has negligible soundness there. Okay. Yes.
Just one question I'm wondering is, so as long as the prover is unbounded, I think it doesn't make sense to start the protocol with the verifier sending something, probably. Just wondering if we restrict the prover to be efficient, wouldn't it make sense to, I'm wondering what, I think we're only considering now protocols where always the prover starts.
The prover speaks first, yes.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if we consider 3-round protocols where the verifier says 2 messages, if this change anything in.
Yeah, so the thing is that the following thing happened. So you have a prover, the verifier, and what they did was something like this, right? So what you're saying is that no, let's do something.
Isn't it the other way?
Yes, I did this. This is what I did, right? And you're proposing to do something like this, right? So the interesting thing is that by doing this, you can indeed realize some quicker form of zero knowledge, actually. So there is something you can achieve. It's just that this thing will be, those are called, you can either achieve what is called distinguisher dependent or weak zero knowledge. Okay? Exactly because you can use the fact that this adversary, when, you have again this cut and choose type of thing, okay? The problem is that when you want to prove zero knowledge, you're proving zero knowledge against any type of verifier, right? So you need to prove zero knowledge even against a verifier that doesn't send this message ever to you. How do you do that? You don't have any more this leverage now. And still, you're using the witness here, right? That's the only message you're sending.
I see, so if the final message comes from the verifier, get into this trial.
So this means that this thing cannot be zero knowledge.
I get it, just, okay.
Right? Because again, the verifier can just not provide you this message. So you don't have anymore the nice Sigma protocol where you can extract. The guy just doesn't reply.
I was always, when I thought about this, I was always thinking about the first message, but now I think thinking about the last, since the last message, it makes more sense to me.
Yeah. No, but it's a very good question. So what you can do, but this is kind of relatively recent research, is that if you assume something about the verifier, for example, that the verifier is malicious but non-aborting, you can do something. Still not zero knowledge, okay? But you can get something which is meaningful, actually, and it's interesting. Okay. Any question? Yes.
Generally speaking, we're interested in values of X that are essentially the solutions to NP problems, like the coloring of the graph or the Hamiltonian, whatever it is.
X is a graph, yeah, and you want to understand if this thing is tricolorable, for example.
Right. So in that sense, why would it be difficult to decide whether X is an L or not? Because usually in these circumstances.
If I give you only the instance, X is just the instance, X is just the graph.
Oh,
okay.
I see, okay.
So if I give you the graph, my claim is that if the graph is Hamiltonian or not Hamiltonian, okay, this should not change the way the simulator behaves. Okay. Indeed, one thing I should say is that, and this is in the title, it's not like I'm saying this is impossible in general. Okay. this is impossible if you have this type of languages. If all the languages, like all the instances of every language is easy to decide, then you have no problem, okay? Because then zero knowledge becomes non-interactive. I can just find the solution to the problem, send it, and this is zero knowledge, and this is sound. Okay, so it's not that this is impossible. It's just impossible for if you assume that not everything is in BPP. Okay. It's, yeah.
So this malicious proof at the bottom,
Yes.
doesn't the simulator need to rewind? I think I,
Yeah, exactly. No, absolutely. But the point is that what can the simulator do? It can rewind the last round. Okay. It will do. So let me say something. So it will do this. You know, maybe it will try to send polynomially many last rounds. Okay. Right. Okay. So the point is that the simulator can just pick one of them at random and send it to the verifier. So with some high probability, 1 over poly, the guess will be correct in the sense that the final output of the simulator will contain this message indeed.
so it only needs to rewind polynomial.
Yeah, exactly, because this thing will do, let's say for simplicity, does polynomially many rewinds. Okay. Okay, good. I will just take one of these messages at random and return it. Okay. With some non-negligible probability, I will get the message that actually appears in the simulation, which is also what I forwarded, and the thing is successful. And the same holds for the first round, right? I mean, you may send multiple first rounds, and then just only one will be actually in the output. I need to guess. That's the thing. Indeed, it's just you just need the probability of success to be non-negligible.
What you need for simulation anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And another, I mean, of course, this is not polynomial time, it's expected polynomial time. There are ways to go around this because you can cut the running time of the simulator. Again, if you want to talk about that, let's do this offline.
No, I believe you.
Yeah, so but yeah, just better to recall that. Okay.
So we have proven that this is not possible for 3-round protocols, but
There are not 3-round pro. It's impossible. It's impossible to have a 3-round protocol which is zero knowledge and like arguments. Just a negligible soundness error. You cannot have it.
but for 4 rounds it's possible.
For round, I show you that it's possible. So what it means is that the protocol I showed you before is kind of the best you can have in terms of round complexity.
So what?
What would fail with the 4th round? So I'm somehow not.
What would fail where?
I mean,
Yeah.
now this impossibility proof worked somehow because we are doing 3 rounds, right?
Yes.
So
So
I don't see.
yeah, no,
For this,
yeah, no, there is one very simple reason why this fails. Okay, the reason why it fails is that, like we said, that the simulator works by extraction. Right? How does he extract? Think about like in the case of the sigma protocol for Hamiltonian for Hamiltonicity, right? So there, the simulator says, give me the permutation of the graph, and then you rewind and you say, give me the cycle. And then if you have the cycle and the permutation, you reconstruct everything. But to do this, you will need to have an interaction with the verifier that looks like this. It's like this is the first round of the sigma protocol. This is the challenge. I say, give me the permutation of the challenge, and here you reply. Right? The thing is that the scheme I'm showing there, it doesn't have this structure. It's like this. Okay? And here I never have this kind of power of doing anything interesting with the rewind. It's like rewinding doesn't help. Again, because the only thing I can do by rewinding is just send multiple times this thing, but that's useful, or restarting a new session. But restarting a new session is also, you can imagine that it doesn't really help. Okay.
And yeah, I think that, and another essential thing that you showed, I think I'm distracted for a moment, is that rewinding is the only thing that can give the simulator extra power.
Correct. And yeah, what we are doing here is that we are assuming that
black box.
Yeah. This is black. I said this. Let me repeat. I'm assuming that we don't know the code of the adversary. If you know the code of the adversary, things become different. Okay. And to kind of terminate the answer, like here your rewinds are not useful. Okay, but you could say like your friend said, let's consider this message schedule instead. And the point is that this is also not zero, cannot be zero knowledge because a verifier just doesn't send you this thing, and you will never know, you will never get the permutation of the graph or the cycle here because the guy just doesn't reply to you. So neither of these two schedule can help you. So,
This is only because we are considering like all the different verifiers that they might exist, or because we have this malicious.
sure, if you have indeed, if you have an honest verifier, for example, that works, right? We know that we can do it. Yeah. Oh, good, good, good. Good. Okay, so yes.
I hope this isn't too much, but I was under the impression that X is actually the Hamiltonian cycle of the graph.
No, sorry, my bad. So when I say X is in the language, so a language, okay, is a set of instances. Okay, so in the case of Hamiltonian graphs, the language just contains all the graphs, just the graphs that are Hamiltonian, that have an Hamiltonian cycle. Or for example, the language of Hamiltonian, of Diffie-Hellman tuples, you know, it's a language that has all the tuples where two elements like have the same discrete log, but the discrete log is not there. Okay, the discrete log is the witness. The cycle is the witness. Is the thing that the prover knows. This thing that we have called W, and that the prover uses to complete the proof. Okay, so good. Now that's the best protocol again. Like, but all the proofs we have done, or at least this proof I've done, like the feasibility proof for the 4-round protocol, was in what we call standalone setting. Let's say. Okay, standalone setting means that you assume that there is a prover, there is a verifier, they execute the protocol, and there is nothing outside. No other protocol is running. Like we are in a Faraday cage. That's not how it works. Okay. Actually, we tried to study a little bit what happens when you do some composition, when you assume that there are protocols that run in parallel. In the specific case, we were considering exactly the same protocol executed in parallel many times, but you could consider the more like general case where you just say, there are many protocols out there. Of course, on the internet, there are things that have been executed at the same time. Okay? And the question is like, you know, can we design a protocol which is again 4-round because some round and that run in concurrency? So, note that when I say concurrency, what I mean is that I want to give as much power to the adversary that is possible. So the schedule of the messages actually is decided by the adversary itself. So what I mean by concurrent composition, what is a concurrent setting? The concurrent setting for zero knowledge is the following. You don't have one verifier, but we have our adversary that controls multiple verifiers, okay? I'm positioning the verifiers here just because it's simpler to show what happens, okay? In particular, here you have a verifier V1, and that, for example, sends the first message, okay? And okay, the prover replies, and then you know, the adversary can decide to stop. It doesn't continue. He starts a new session with a new verifier. Okay. Remember, like all the verifiers here are controlled by adversary because in zero knowledge, verifiers bad. Okay. Remember this. Okay. You can have the following situation. Okay, that's a very strange situation, but it can happen. And now I would like to argue, okay, let's try to prove that, you know, we have a simulator. We can simulate all this mess. So I can create the same situation, but without having the witness. I can convince these many verifiers that all these things are accepting and indistinguishable without having the witness. So what we do, I mean, as Marco said before, like the only thing we can do is rewinding. So what we do is that we start from here, and we say, okay, let me rewind you. So we rewind, good. And we are done. Let's say we 2 rewinds, we are done for simplicity. And now the adversary says, okay, I need to complete this other execution. But this means that we need to rewind this thing. So we send a new message. And now what the adversary does is that it changes completely what it was sending here before. Because, for example, think about an adversary that runs a pseudo-random function, and whatever it receives as input, it uses as a randomness to create the new message. So this means that if you change the history that the adversary has seen up to that point, it will also change whatever message it's sending to you. So what the adversary is doing here is generating a completely new session for which I don't know nothing. So I need to simulate this thing again. I need to rewind again. Okay, good. I've simulated this one though, right? I was doing the rewind for this session. Yeah, but now I need to do the same for this other session here. Okay. So the question for you is like, how much time do you think that this simulation strategy takes?
It's exponential in the number of times.
In the number of,
Verify.
yeah, it's exponential in the number of sessions you. So if you open constant number of sessions, things are putting enough time, but unfortunately due to this nesting thing, the simulator will never be efficient, okay? This is just a proof sketch. The actual proof is more involved, but that's kind of the idea. That's what happens, unfortunately. So we don't have concurrent composition. But let me tell you the full story here. So concurrent composition for constant protocols in general is not possible. It becomes possible if you assume something about the time. Or for example, like, you know, in that case, we were saying that the verifier adversary decides everything. But why would that be the case? I mean, maybe the prover can decide when to answer to a specific verifier depending on whether he likes or not the message schedule. That's a bit too powerful, okay? Or if there is some delta time between when a message is sent between like the multiple verifiers. Okay? What we also know is that only languages in BPP have concurrent black box simulator that have like less than log rounds. So if you want to get some type of concurrency, you need to go to logarithmically many rounds. So the protocol becomes very complicated, very slow, like things become terrible. However, like again, we were assuming that the adversary can open as many sessions as he wants, but we can, if instead we know how many sessions the adversary will open, then we can have actually some protocols. Those are based, if I'm not mistaken, on like indistinguishability obfuscation, so you can do something. But you need to know how many sessions will be open, which can be realistic. I mean, okay. So again, it's not like, you know, our impossibilities are very strong, but there are easy way to circumvent them. Okay.
Excuse me, maybe I missed it there, but how is this concurrent composition? Like, what is
Oh, because like, let's say I want to run a protocol, I want to prove something to you, but also to all the other people in this room. Okay. I want to do this, like, I don't want to do one by one. I want to do, you know, in parallel or in concurrency, which means that I start with you, and then another person says, oh, prove this thing to me also. And then we start. And then another guy comes and said, prove this to me as well. Right, and then you have...
But in the graphic, it looked like the verifiers would be exchanging messages among each other, which is not...
No, it's not among each other. So the picture here was a bit like, it's like... so the picture here means that... so every verifier, so the messages between prover and verifier one are this one, okay? Just this four.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So it's a bit annoying. The verifier should have been here, but then it becomes complicated to, okay? For example, for the verifier N, those are the messages that the verifier N exchanges with the prover, okay?
Okay, but why does then the work has to be redone if...
Because the problem is that when I rewind this session, I change this message because it's like, I don't know, the challenge, you know, from bit 0 becomes bit 1. And adversary says, oh, you know what, I'm not sending you a black message, I will send you a blue message, something completely different. And now you need to simulate this again. And you need to do this every time. So again, this is a very bad situation that you can assume it doesn't happen. But if you do allow like full power to the verifier, then things like this happen. Okay, so I will go quickly over the very last part. It's not going to take long. I will skip some details. So, okay, we have seen that 4 rounds is the best we can do. That's very annoying. And now let's see how to circumvent this impossibility while not really circumventing the impossibility, okay? So what people really like in practice is the following, is the so-called Fiat-Shamir transform. So we have seen Sigma protocols. Just as a reminder, the Sigma protocol is here, okay? 3-round public coin protocol. How do you make it non-interactive? you assume that the prover and verifier have access to some special function. Let's think about like an hash function. So the prover computes the first round of the protocol, and then hashes this first round and use like the hash as a challenge to compute the last round of the sigma protocol. So I'm replacing the role of the verifier with like, the output of an hash function. That's what I'm doing. Okay. Now, the idea here is that because I cannot really predict what C is, I cannot really run the simulator, so this thing should be fine. Okay. So once you do this stuff and you give the proof to the verifier, and now the verifier will just hash the statement and the first round, and it runs the verification procedure of the sigma protocol. Okay. So in practice, this is an hash function. Okay. But if this is an hash function, actually things don't work. So, or at least they work in a heuristical way. So indeed, what you do is that when you prove the security of these protocols, you prove them assuming that this O thing here behaves like a random function. So behave like, it's like an ideal functionality you have in the sky that you say, that works in this way. So you send a message, you say, give me a random value, and it gives them the random value to you. Okay. If you query this functionality again with the same message, it will give you the same random value that was kind of issued before. So it keeps an history. Okay. Like, again, it's exactly like a random function. So what is important is that, again, when you prove security of these protocols in this model, this random oracle model assumes that this is like an ideal functionality and nobody can access to the code of this thing. Can only be treated as a black box, and moreover, the reduction can control the random oracle, which means that you remember the reductions we have done before, like what you have is that the reduction itself can look at all the queries the adversary make to this ideal functionality and even decide how the random oracle should answer to the adversary. I don't think we have time, right? So this is how you prove soundness. I don't think I will go over the details of this. So I think the only thing I want to say is that like I have a bit of a discussion on this thing, like what is this random oracle? Why do we think it's fine? And even if I prove that you need to kind of like 4 rounds of interaction. So what happens is that in practice, what you're doing here, you're kind of assuming like you have some trusted setup. It's like you have a setup that is an hash function. So it means that, okay, sure, we have less interaction, but we are assuming that someone generates some nice setup, some nice function for us. And moreover, here we are saying that we can query this thing and, okay. So in practice, again, like this random oracle is replaced by an hash function. You cannot like hope to replace the random oracle with a pseudo-random function, because like if you to evaluate this function, you need the key, and if the verifier and the prover have the key, this is not pseudo-random. Okay, there is nothing pseudo-random once you leak the key of a pseudo-random function. Just to clarify, and so the problem is that there are some critiques and but also a lot of optimism about this type of approach. One critique is related to the fact that you can design a sigma protocol. You can design a protocol that in the random oracle is secure. But when you replace the random oracle with an hash function, security breaks. Okay, so these things exist. But the thing is that these protocols are contrived, like they're not natural protocols. So what we believe is that for natural protocols, kind of like the field works and security is preserved. So overall, it's a good heuristic, and it's kind of like it gives you some type of way to argue about the security. So after all, it's better to have some type of proof than no proof at all. Moreover, like there is this result of Stock 2019 where they actually argue that the field transform works for some type of sigma protocols where you just assume hash functions with some special properties that are called correlation intractable hash functions. So if you have these things, actually field works. it's not SHA, like it must be like a very well crafted hash function. And yeah, the pessimistic view is just that we don't really understand this thing. I mean, what we have discussed so far, I think we can all say that it's kind of a clean theory, at least. But the problem is that sometimes you want things to be like practical, non-interactive, which is great. And unfortunately, that's one of the way we know how to do things in a reasonably efficient way. Okay, so let me end everything here, and thank you very much.